Hello, and welcome back to the Feral North Devlog. If it's your first time tuning in, welcome. Feral North is an adventure game about restoring color to the world, and you get to play as a border collie, so that's really cool. I'm aiming to release the game in 2022, but in the meantime you can wishlist it on Steam, which would help a ton. Anyways, one of the main mechanics in Feral North centers around these perspective puzzles, where you have to view an object from the correct angle and color it in order to unlock it. In recent playtests I found that players are having a really hard time understanding the puzzle, so it's time to solve that. One of the main issues I feel is the environment where the first of these puzzles is presented. It's in a cave that's dark and cramped, and your human companion is having a little bit of an anxiety attack, which further darkens the area and reduces the viable space to view the puzzle. The first order of business was to expand the space of the cave so you have more room to maneuver, and to move the girl further away from the puzzle so that the anxiety effect isn't so distracting. Even beyond the level design though, some players just aren't quite getting it. This bridge is particularly troublesome because the shape of the shattered fragments really doesn't lend itself well to guiding the player to the solution. The fragments go in the direction that you need to view from, but that's not at all clear here. In order to solve this, I came up with a highlighting system that gives a sense of coloring between the lines. Basically, the object has a white highlight around its restored shape, and it's formed so that when you view it from the correct perspective, all the fragments will fit within the lines. I feel this gives a nice tactile comparison as we've all worked with coloring books, and the hope is that this familiarity will help the puzzle click. Trouble is when I applied the same shader to the bridge, the shape was far too detailed for the shader to handle, so I had to create a new model to approximate the shape. This presented another problem though because it looks like someone decorated the bridge with Christmas lights or something, so I ended up having to tone it down quite a bit, as you'll see soon. The other improvement I made was in the movement of the shards. Rather than just having them slide in the direction of the solution, they now respond to camera movement so that they move further and closer to the reformed shape based on how close you are to the correct perspective. The theory was that with these two combined effects, and some improved level design, that would be enough to help teach the players. So for this we need to look at some new footage from some new playtesters. Some of the playtesters from this round had seen the devlogs, so they're not necessarily a good representation, but a friend was kind enough to give the game to his 9-year-old to see if they'd be able to solve the puzzles without guidance, and the results were really promising. There's some encouraging experimentation at first, but my goal was that once they solved the first one, which only really has one path straight to the solution, they should understand what's required. Sure enough, on the second puzzle they knew exactly what direction to go in, so it was just a matter of some exploration to find the perfect spot, and by the third time they seemed like a pro. My favorite footage though was one playtester who mic'd up and had the perfect aha moment.
Can I? Okay, no, I clearly cannot. Oh, I see. Okay, that's... Okay, I like that. It tells me more where I have to be.
More playtests will be needed to know for sure, but I think this puzzle is in a good place now, and I can look to introduce some variations and maybe some more difficulty. Switching gears now, let's talk about gates. I know what you're thinking, the animations still need work, but that's not what we're here to talk about right now. You see, the way all the gates worked is that before they could only be open if they were colored, but it was a bit arbitrary, and not having any visual representation of why, frankly, just made it kind of weird. I wanted to add some new visuals to make it clear when a gate or some other interactable was blocked, and my first thought went to some sort of like tendrils or tentacles coming from the ground, so I set out to make that happen. I decided to create them in VFX Graph, but the first results weren't very promising. I knew I wanted to generate the tendril shapes using Catmull Rom, which is a really handy algorithm for generating paths and curves, and something I use extensively in the game for things like the wisps. It's so popular that Wikipedia actually even has a Unity C# implementation ready to go. I've got my own version which takes advantage of Burst and Unity's mathematics package, so it's extremely efficient, but I needed a way to pass this data into VFX Graph from C#, and I wasn't really sure how to go about that. I tried a few things, but what I decided to do was to use C# to generate the paths of the tendrils, as you can see here with these blue dots, and then package that data into a texture that could then be sampled from VFX Graph. This worked great and actually allowed the paths to be randomized, so the next step was to add some proper visuals and animate between the generated paths. With the paths available in VFX Graph, I spent some time experimenting with different visual styles, for example this all-white variation. And I also wrote a little code to animate between the generated paths so that the movement was more consistent, and tried other visual effects similar to the hand monster from a few videos back. I hooked them up to the coloring system so you could destroy them, but pretty much at this point I decided that frankly, I hated it. I decided very quickly to mock up a variant that used hands similar to the monster, and post it as a poll on Discord to see what you guys thought. In the meantime, looking at these two images, I figured the biggest problem is that you actually can't make out any detail in these things. One of the biggest challenges with the game as a whole is that the uncolored world has such a limited color palette that everything kind of ends up getting compressed, and in particular things get way too dark. You can see here it's basically black on black. I made some changes to the algorithm and to the color palette, and I hope the results speak for themselves. I'm able to get much more texture and lighting detail than before into the uncolored world. In a previous devlog I had showed some progress in this direction, but the latest changes really take it up further. Anyways, a few hours later and the results were in. The tendrils won the vote, and a lot of people voted for neither, so I did the logical thing and I completely ignored the results. I decided the hands were the way to go, because it ties into the rest of the game much better. I'll explain why a little bit later, but the tendrils are officially out. I might find some use for that later on, so I haven't gotten rid of the code or anything, but for now they're nowhere to be found in the game. So I got to work animating, coding, particling, and more shader coding, and here's what I came up with. So, just a bit of background, I don't necessarily think of this as literal hand that the girl sees. To me it's a representation of something holding her back that only the dog really sees. But it's hard to convey that, so I'd love to hear your thoughts on how that would be better presented. Right now she basically just ignores it completely and tries to open the gate unsuccessfully, but there are definitely better ways to go about this, so I'd love to hear your thoughts. I've mostly decided that all the negative and monster related content will be presented in the form of personifications, so the hand monster is an example as well as this. I'll leave you off with the following shot from the demo, which I feel ties nicely with the new hand, and kind of conveys what I'm going for here. The other thing you're probably thinking is that it's just too easy to just ping the thistles and unlock the gate. What's the fun in that? So I'll have an update for a new mechanic in the next devlog, but you can see a little prototype implementation here. I plan to add more movement and skill to the puzzles, and this will be one tool to help in that direction. The game is still going to be on the casual side, but I just want a little bit more puzzle solving and creativity in the solutions. Anyways guys, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like the video and leave your thoughts down below. I love chatting with you guys in the comments, and if you're feeling supportive, please head over to Steam and add the game to your wishlist. That helps a ton. In any case though, I'll see you next time. Bye for now.